In this video, we will be looking at another type of business ownership structure, private limited companies. Many startup businesses choose to operate as private limited companies, and this is one of the most popular forms of business ownership here in the UK. Unlike working as a sole trader or being in a partnership, a limited company is a legal entity in its own right. The company is like a person. It is separate from the owners of the business, which will include all of the shareholders who own a piece of the company. Importantly, with a private limited company, or some might say an LTD, the owners have limited liability. Their legal responsibilities are limited to the amount that they have invested in the business. Liability is an extremely important topic, and if you are still a little unsure of exactly what this means, I would suggest you go back to the video that introduces business ownership and liability. The biggest difference between going it alone as a sole trader and forming a limited company is that a limited company has special status in the eyes of the law. As I have said, it is viewed as its own entity. Part of what makes a limited company is that it is incorporated. It's formally set up and registered with Companies House, the government body that monitors companies. To all the teachers out there, show all of these videos without any ads and gain access to our growing library of over 500 teaching worksheets. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Limited companies can be private or public. Unlike a public limited company, which we will explore in a future video, where shares are traded on the stock exchange, a private limited company does not publicly trade its shares and it is limited to a maximum of 50 shareholders. Private limited companies are owned by their shareholders and they're managed by their directors. But you might be thinking, what even is a share? Why would I want to hold it? I want you to imagine a share as a piece of the cake that is the company. Shareholders are people who hold a share. They have purchased a piece of this cake. They have invested money into the business to own this individual piece. The share in the company is now their property and it has a value. This share value might increase or even decrease over time. As I mentioned, private limited companies are only able to have a maximum of 50 shareholders. So no more than 50 pieces of the cake can be sold, or they will need to reassess their ownership structure and potentially consider becoming a public limited company, also known as a PLC. Let's take this opportunity to introduce this video's main example. This is Dale Dwight, and he is one of the founders of CardShark, an online greetings card retailer similar to other popular businesses such as Moonpig. CardShark produces all of their cards in their own high-tech production facility in Hull, and they send them directly to your friends and family through the Royal Mail. Their initial website launched in 2014, and since then the business has increased the selection of cards on offer and has become a widely recognised business with many returning customers. Dale and his two partners, Phil and Lucy, have been operating the business as a partnership since its launch. After reviewing their ownership structure, they have now decided to become a private limited company and officially register CardShark as an incorporated business with Companies House. Being a director of a limited company is different to operating as a sole trader or a partnership. As directors of CardShark, Dale, Phil and Lucy all own a significant piece of the business, but they are not, the business. CardShark Limited is now a legal entity in its own right, and they are now only shareholders who own a piece of this cake, even if it is a big piece. So let's take a look at the advantages to Dale and the team at CardShark of becoming a private limited company. Possibly the most important advantage of becoming a private limited company is that the shareholders have limited liability. This is so important. Liability is your legal responsibility. If your liability, your legal responsibility, is limited, this means you can only lose what you have invested in the business. In the event of a legal dispute or problems with debt, it is CardShark itself, the company, that is sued or even pursued by debt collectors rather than Dale, Phil, Lucy, or any of the other shareholders. This means if the company fails, the shareholders' assets, such as their homes or life savings, are not at risk. If you remember, this is not the case as a sole trader or partnership. They are held personally accountable for any unpaid debts or legal bills incurred by the business. This is because, as we have discussed, they do not have limited liability, they instead have unlimited liability. Bring this video and over 100 more to life with fun, interactive games, quizzes, and case studies. Why not try the first 25 completely free by visiting BizzWizard.co.uk. The next advantage we will consider is the ability to raise finances. As a private limited company, you can sell shares in your business to raise money. This is known as equity finance. For Dale and CardShark, this means they will be able to sell pieces of their business to others in return for the money that they are then able to invest back into the business. It may also be easier for them to get what we call debt finance, which is money borrowed from organisations like the bank. It might be easier for Dale and his team to do this because they are perceived to be less of a risk than a sole trader or a partnership. For CardShark, they are hoping to undergo a major expansion in their operation by upselling customised gifts alongside their cards. There is a significant profit to make on many of these gifts, but a change like this is going to come at a cost. By becoming a private limited company, they are now able to sell their shares to investors, friends, and family, and this should hopefully mean that they have a better chance of raising the necessary capital. The next advantage we will consider is continuity. Unlike in the case of a sole trader, in the event that Dale, Phil, or Lucy were to unfortunately die, the company would still continue to operate. This means that things won't grind to a halt during an already difficult time. So, the final advantage that we will consider is control. Specifically, control of who you sell shares to. When we talk about control here, we mean in comparison to a public limited company, or a PLC for short. As a private limited company, shareholders must agree on all sale of any new shares, meaning a piece of the cake that is the business can't be sold to anybody without the agreement from the other shareholders. When we compare this to a public limited company, where anybody can buy shares, this allows the founders, like Dale, to only allow people into the company that they want to be there, people that they want to have a say. Famous entrepreneur Richard Branson reverted his Virgin Group company back from a public limited company to a private limited company for this very reason. He wanted to be in control of, well, who was in control? As with each of these forms of business ownership, there are of course some key disadvantages of choosing to operate as a private limited company. First up on our list is that as a company, you are going to be expected to pay dividends. Dividends are payments made by a company to its shareholders, usually on an annual basis. These payments are taken from the profits earned by the business, and the more shares that are sold, the more shareholders you have, the more diluted your company profits will become. If CardShark takes on an additional 5 new shareholders in order to raise the finances for their upcoming expansion, this would mean that each of these new shareholders would require a proportion of the company's profits. As a private limited company, CardShark are not able to sell their shares on the stock exchange, meaning they may be limited in the amount of finance that they are able to generate. If CardShark choose to instead become a public limited company through a process known as flotation, which we will discuss in another video, then they would be able to trade their shares on the stock exchange, giving them the ability to raise significantly more capital, more money, and likely much quicker. So next up on the list of disadvantages is that as a private limited company, it is a legal requirement that your financial accounts be published every year and be made available to the public. This means that your competitors are able to see the success or even failure of your business. Don't forget, if your competition can see that your company is failing, they can swoop in and try to take you out of the game, perhaps by lowering their prices for a while or by increasing advertising. Each of the video courses over at BizzWizard.co.uk also includes an interactive business case study that applies the knowledge learnt to a real-world scenario. There are over 1,000 multiple-choice questions, each with detailed feedback, which tests students' understanding of the content. Why not visit BizzWizard.co.uk to find out more? Perhaps one of the biggest disadvantages to operating a private limited company is the sheer amount of paperwork involved. There are many documents that must be sent to the correct person at the correct time, or there is a risk that the company may receive considerable fines if they don't get this all done. To ensure that CardShark are able to manage all of this additional administration, they plan on hiring a new member of staff who already has experience dealing with these issues. But it will be really important if you decide to incorporate your business and become a private limited company that you make sure you know exactly what you have to do. Think about all the hoops that you must jump through and the paperwork that you're going to have to complete. So, there we have it, a private limited company. This is one of those times where the name is really going to help you out. The company is private. This reminds you that they only sell shares to the people they want to. The limited part of the name reminds you that they have limited liability. And the company part, well, that reminds you that they're a company. Our examples, Dale, Phil and Lucy and the growing team at CardShark, hope that their recent decision to become a private limited company will allow them to raise the finances required for their upcoming expansion. Becoming a private limited company was the right choice for this business, in this situation, with these people, but it will not be the best option for every business in every situation. That's why understanding the different business ownership structures is so incredibly important for the entrepreneur. This has been the BizzWizard. See you in the next video.